everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to the channel. I am here today with my June 2020 media wrap-up video. So this is going to be, well, it's really just going to be a movie wrap-up because I don't have anything else to talk about other than movies that I consumed last month. So if you want to know what books I read last month, definitely check out my book wrap-up video. I don't remember the number of books I had, but it felt like a lot, so check that one out. It's a pretty long one if you're interested in long videos. But either way, today I have 6 films to talk about that I watched last month, so without further ado, let's dive right in. First up is a film that I've been wanting to see for quite some time, and it's been in my collection forever. This is Brian Yuzna's Society from 1989, and I of course own the Arrow video release of this with this incredible cover art, which it has like there's a texture on here which is really good. There's the back, it's just more of the same, which if you've seen the film, obviously this cover makes sense to you, but if not, you were like me and you were just like, that's weird. But anyway, so Society is one of those when I was going through my Arrow video collection that I said, I'm going to prioritize this movie. I need this to be at the top of my Arrow video list. So I'm very happy that I finally was able to watch this film last month. But the reason I've been wanting to watch Society so badly is just because it's always cited as one of the crazier body horror cult movies out there. And so I had to see it. I love body horror, obviously. And so I had to check this one out. And it definitely lives up to that body horror label. It is bonkers. So in Society, we are following this teenager named Bill. He's a bit of he feels like a bit of an outcast. He feels like an outsider compared to his parents, even, and his sister, even his girlfriend. Something feels off about. And so because of this outsider mentality, basically the film is he just a teenage boy going through some, angst, some normal teenage years? Or is he really an outsider? Is something going on in this society that he finds himself in? So this takes place in, obviously this was released in 89, so it's like a late 80s California, rich upper class people. And so that setting is just a lot of fun to watch, like that, just the filming locations, things like that was a lot of fun to watch. And then mixing the kind of high class expectations, those proper expectations with what goes on in this film, I thought was a really cool juxtaposition that worked quite well. The film itself, I think, is pretty good. The weakest part for me had to be the story, I guess. It's all building, though, to those final moments, to that final body horror moment of the film that everyone knows it for. And so the journey there may not be the most interesting or the best. When you finally reach the finale, that climax, it is more than worth the wait because it is absolutely insane. It's just madness at the end of this film, which frankly, really the body horror really comes in at the end. There is some spread out throughout it, but it's really, the reason you're watching this is for like the last 15-20 minutes because it's nuts. So even if you're not enjoying it all the way, as much as you hope on the way there, like I was, stick through to the end because you'll probably think it's worth it once you get to the finale. It's just crazy. So while Society wasn't my favorite film by any stretch, I appreciate it, and the special effects on it are phenomenal, worth watching for that alone. So I ended up giving Society 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I will mention that this release from Arrow is fantastic. So I mentioned before that it came with a comic book as part of the special features. Whoops, dropping things. And it does. And so I just found out by looking here, it actually takes place 10 years after the events of the original. So I'm glad I didn't read this, or I didn't even look in like that little section up here. I didn't read that until recently, because otherwise I would have been spoiled for the film. So definitely don't read this until you've watched the movie, but I can't wait to get to this now that I realize that it's after the fact. Such an awesome set. The special features, I watched through some of those. They were great. The picture quality is fantastic, probably the best that this is ever going to look. So if you're interested, if you like this film, the Arrow release of this is definitely the way to go. So again, I gave Society from 1989 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up was a film that I actually watched for the first time last year, and it ended up as my most disappointing first-time viewing of 2019. And that is the Halloween sequel from 2018, directed by David Gordon Green. So I had such high expectations going into this film the first time I watched it, and I I didn't know what to expect, I guess. And because of that, I was just really disappointed with it. So fast forward to sometime in like late May, early June, whenever it was, and I discovered that Hoopla had the audiobook version of the novelization of this available to borrow. So I said, you know what? Let's give it a shot. Let's read the novelization, see how I like that, and then try watching the film again. See if it makes a difference. So I did that. I talked about the novelization in my book wrap-up, and I really enjoyed it. I think the novelization adds a number of scenes and a number of moments that are cut out of the final script or were left at the editing room floor, whatever the case may be, that really add to the film. And more than that, with novelizations, you're getting a lot more of the inner dialogue, that inner monologue, rather, that you can't really do in film. And so you're getting a lot more of the motivations behind some of the actions, which really helps make you care more about these characters. At least it did for me. So did that, enjoyed the novelization, and then I was watching the film again. And as much as I disliked it the first time, I actually thoroughly enjoyed it the second time around. Yes, there are issues. The story itself it feels very familiar to the original. So if you don't know, this sequel actually reestablishes the canon of the Halloween series. So now you have the original from 1978, and then you jump 30 years later to this sequel in 2018, and that's really all we have at this point. Halloween Kills will be coming out late next year, and that'll be the third film in this now new canon of the Halloween franchise. But everything from Halloween 2 all the way through Halloween Resurrection, I get, even the Rob Zombies, those were never canon, but everything is no longer a thing. I guess the original trilogy was like Halloween, Halloween 2, and then Halloween H2O, which I love as a trilogy, but now we have this, so take that for what you will. So here we are introduced to the characters of Laurie's granddaughter and Laurie's daughter. So Laurie lost her daughter at 11. She was taken away by like Child Protective Services, and then her daughter eventually had a granddaughter, and she's kind of like the strange, estranged grandmother at this point. But the granddaughter's trying to connect with her a little bit more as she's reaching graduation. So one major element to keep in mind, and something that I had to remind myself about, coming into the novelization even, is the fact that the relationship that we know between Laurie and Michael was established in the second film. It's not in the first film at all. And so because of that, it's not a part of this sequel, because Halloween 2 doesn't exist in this new universe. So that alone kind of threw me off the first time I watched it. But obviously, going into the novelization and coming into this film, I knew that and expected that at this point. So I didn't have as big of a problem with it. And I think the way that they keep the connection between those two characters, I think works actually relatively well in this sequel. So you get a lot of the same beats that you get in the original film. This time, the characters that we're really spending time with are the granddaughter and her group of friends, and you get a lot of the same story beats that you do from the original. So this is going to feel familiar to you. You're probably going to know what to expect here. But who's coming into a Halloween film expecting some kind of crazy twists and turns? That you shouldn't, really, right? That's not what it's about. It is a slasher film, and it is a prototype slasher film, right? This is the type of slasher film that all other slasher films try to follow. There are a lot of moments in the novelization that I wish would have been left in this film because they add a lot to it. Like some character scenes between our two podcasters who we get introduced to at the beginning of the film. I think those are pretty interesting, and they make those characters more memorable and more important. But that's left out here in the film. But, it is what it is. Obviously, you can do a lot more in a novel than you can in the film, so some things get cut, and that's just the way it goes. So while I did prefer the novelization to the film, I still think on second viewing that the film is worth watching. It is a decent Halloween sequel. I think there are some other films, like Halloween H2O, for example, I think is a better movie than this sequel. But, it is what it is. I think it's done pretty well. So I don't really know what else to say about it. I talked a lot about it when I was talking about the novelization, and a lot of those same things apply here. I think it's good, not great. So I ended up giving Halloween from 2018 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I would recommend it if you are a fan of the Halloween franchise. But I would recommend checking out that novelization even more so than watching this film, because it's just better. It's done better. So, take that for what you will. So Halloween from 2018, 3.5 out of 5 stars. So it is currently July, and the Criterion Collection hype is real because of the Barnes & Noble 50% off sale that's going on right now. I have a video out on what I've purchased so far, so definitely check that out. I went crazy and bought way too many things, but I'm so happy about it, so check that video out if you haven't seen it. But because of the hype leading up to this, I wanted to check out some of my Criterion Collection films, and so last month I decided that I was going to watch one of my 5 films to watch in 2020, and that was Don't Look Now from 1973. So this is a Nicholas Roeg film, and it stars Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie as our 2 main characters. So the reason I wanted to watch this one so much was because it's supposed to be, people said it was like the best horror film in the Criterion Collection, and frankly, just one of the best horror films ever, period. So, of course, having never seen it, I had to check it out. It's been on my to-watch list for literally years, and then once Criterion released it, I had to buy it, very quickly after it released because I just needed to see it. But then it sat on my shelves for years because that's what I do. But regardless, Don't Look Now is finally a film that I can say I have watched. Before I talk about my opinion of it, let me just remind you that this is simply my opinion of it. You can love this film, and you are correct in doing so. That said, I didn't love this movie. Obviously there are some expectations when you that you have to kind of put aside when you go to watch a film for the first time, especially one that is as well regarded as something like this. And I think I did that. I don't think it was just a victim of hype. I don't think that was the case at all, because I fully expected to love this movie. I wanted to love this movie. I figured I would. Unfortunately, it didn't do it for me. So with this film, it actually had me hooked at the very beginning, because the opening scene, which I'm going to talk about because it's not a spoiler, it's on the back of the box. Everyone, that's how you kind of describe this film or what it's about. A tragedy happens to this family that we're following. The daughter dies, and there is a scene with Donald Sutherland holding the daughter after she perishes, and it is just heart-wrenching. I was in tears at that moment because it was so sad and just horrific to think about. So right from the beginning, I was like, yes, this is going to be incredible. What happens next? So after the events of that opening scene, the couple, the mom and the dad, then head to Venice. And so that's when we pick up with them. The husband is, Donald Sutherland is he's remodeling this church, I guess. And so they are having an extended time there. The son is at like a boarding school somewhere else. He's not really a part of the film after the opening scene at all. It's really about the couple, and their experiences. So I guess what I didn't love about this was that one of the major aspects is the relationship between the husband and the wife, and the fact that it is strained. And I only picked that up after I started watching the special features, because I didn't really get that at all. The way they were acting with each other, it didn't feel like there was really anything wrong. It almost didn't feel like they went through this tragic moment just, whatever it was, months earlier, or whatever it was, a year earlier, whatever the case may be. They felt normal. And because of that, I wasn't really taken by everything that was going on with them. There is a sex scene in this, which is widely considered one of the best sex scenes in cinema, and I thought it was fine. I think the reason I didn't really fall for it was because I didn't get the moments before. I didn't understand what was going on with the couple leading up to it, and so that really diminished my appreciation of that scene, which maybe this is one I need to give a second chance to now that I have a better understanding of what's going on, or what I should have caught the first time around. But the other major aspect of this is a supernatural one. And the couple is seeing a person in red, which the daughter died wearing a red coat. And so red plays it's on the it's on the cover art here. Red plays a pivotal part in this entire film. So they're seeing this person in this red coat, trying to figure out what that is. But that never really intrigued me, because I felt like the film answered what that was as we were going. Of course, as the film builds, obviously it's not what I thought was going on at all. It's not what anyone would have ever possibly thought, because it's so out of left field. It's like, okay, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not going to talk spoilers, so I have to be... I'm riding that thin line to not talk spoilers. But the other aspect to this are these two sisters who are psychic. They play a huge role in this. The husband and wife the husband really starts seeing things. He can't explain them. Let me talk about what I appreciated in this film. And first and foremost is the cinematography. The locations that they use in Venice are fantastic. The use of sound with like... You can hear someone coming from quite a distance away because everything is so close together and like cavernous almost through the streets of Venice. I thought that was so well done, so cool. And they took advantage of every bit of it. It was beautiful to watch. But outside of really that, I guess, the music was fine. I know that's really well regarded. It didn't really stick out to me that much, to be honest with you. I don't know. Some films hit you in the right way. Some films just don't. And for me, this was one that I just didn't connect with. So I know you're watching this. You probably love it. And I totally appreciate that and understand that. Unfortunately for me, it just didn't do it for me. Will I give this one another shot? Maybe. I do want to do a full review on this in a standalone, so hopefully you'll see that coming eventually. I need to finish up the special features on here before I do that, though, and I'm pretty darn close, so hopefully that'll be up sooner rather than later. But I ended up giving Nicholas Roeg's Don't Look Now from 1973 2 out of 5 stars. Next up was a Blu-ray that I bought on Black Friday last year, and that is the Child's Play remake from 2019. So this one I've heard really good things about going into it, and so I was super excited to see it. Fortunately, it was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed this one. So unlike the original, where we have the serial killer putting his soul into the Chucky doll, this time around, we have a disgruntled employee who has basically he's just gotten fired. I believe the opening of this film takes place in China, where these are made. And the employee gets fired, but the boss tells him, hey, one more doll, you finish this doll and then you get out of here. And then he starts yelling at him. And so the guy's pissed. So what he does is takes off all of the, like, what would be like parental controls, like all the filters off of the doll, and then boxes it up. And of course, this eventually ends up in the hands of our lead character. I should mention right off the get-go that the main character in this is a few years older than the main character in the original. And so that plays a part because you're more cynical the older you get, right? And so that innocence of the little boy in the original is kind of lost a bit here with our character in the remake. But I don't think it hindered the film at all. So what is so different about this one is in the original, we have a possessed doll. That's that. In this one, we have an AI. So this is actually a robot. So because of that, this robot is made, it's basically like Siri or Alexa or whatever, Google Play, but in a doll form. And so he'll learn, he'll talk to you, he'll walk around the house, things like that. And because of that, some of the creep factor was lost for me because this is a doll that's supposed to walk. This is a doll that's supposed to talk. So when it talks and walks, it's not really that creepy. Now, I will say, it does get creepier as it goes on because obviously this doll is learning and eventually that learning turns to violence and so on and so forth. And at that point, obviously it gets creepy and it all leads up to this incredible climax. The final scene in this is just so much fun. So I really enjoyed this one. I think the acting is just great all around. I really enjoyed the characters. It feels like a very different movie than the original. I wouldn't even call this a remake. I would call this a reimagining more than anything, which I didn't expect at all coming into it. The fact that this is an AI robot and not a possessed doll was just shocking to me because I didn't know that's what it was. But I think they handle it really well and they update it. Like, it just feels more updated for today's audience and it works because of that. So I really enjoyed this one. I ended up giving Child's Play from 2019 4 out of 5 stars. Yes, I do realize I gave a remake 4 stars and the classic Don't Look Now 2 stars. I realize I'm trash and it's just the way it is. It's what you get when you hit play on my videos, I guess. Trash. Next up was another film I watched digitally, and this is Robert from 2015, directed by Andrew Jones. So this is available on Amazon Prime Video. If you have that, you could watch it there if you desire to, which I wouldn't recommend necessarily. But so Robert is basically only exists because Annabelle was successful. So, you know, you have all those knockoffs, and that's exactly what this is. That said, Robert the doll is a real, supposedly haunted doll. I think you can see him in the Florida Keys is where he is kept at this point. And it's one of those ones where like you shouldn't take a picture of him without asking his permission. And if you do, you are haunted. And then people will send letters to him apologizing for it so that their bad luck eventually turns around after their apology. So that's what this is about. My buddy actually went to the Florida Keys and saw Robert the doll, which I would love to do if I ever go down there. I definitely will, just because it's a fascinating haunted doll story, which I'm always interested in. So I don't know. That's what this movie is based off of. So basically, we are following this family. They fire their nanny at the beginning of the film. And as revenge, because she's pissed about it, she gifts this doll, Robert, to the son of the household. And of course, crazy bad things start happening. So this sounds like a really cool movie and right up my alley. Unfortunately, it is an incredibly boring film. So the problem here, I actually watched this one a year, maybe 2, even 3 years ago now. And I had a heck of a time staying awake when I was watching it the first time through. I'll admit I didn't have a problem staying awake this time. I was still bored throughout the whole thing. So Andrew Jones is very clearly a talented director. This is a competently made film. It's just the story is poorly put together. So instead of a haunted doll film, we're really getting a domestic thriller, and not even a thriller, just a domestic drama with this couple, because the wife has some psychological problems of some sort. Eventually those are revealed as you go through the film. And so because of that, when these things start happening with the doll, it becomes more arguments between the two of them more than anything. And it even starts that way before the doll even gets into the picture. So it's really a film about this couple and their marital problems with a little hint of a haunted doll tossed in there for fun. Unfortunately, that was not very engaging to watch because the writing is not the best. You're watching very much a B movie at this point. So, you know, it is what it is. This is one that I feel like the director has so much more in him that I want to check out more. And fortunately, the reason I actually watched this is because I wanted to do a whole video on this entire Robert series, which is like 5 or 6 movies long at this point, and all of them are available on Amazon Prime. So I might do it if I decide I want to keep going. I think I want to check out the next one just to see if it gets any better. I just feel like Andrew Jones has something going for him that I want to give him another chance. So I'm probably going to watch more of his stuff as time goes on, but I don't know if I'm going to end up completing the entire Robert series. It just depends on how much I like the second one, and then we'll just go from there. So we'll see. But I ended up giving Robert from 2015 2 out of 5 stars, and I honestly just stick with Annabelle. I wouldn't really recommend this one. And last but not least, the final film I watched last month is probably the most entertaining piece of media I have seen in all of 2020, and that is John Wick from 2014. Everybody has hyped up this film over the years, saying how great it was, and the sequels are just as good, and so on and so forth. And it's not that I didn't believe them, I just never got around to it. But this film is as good as everyone has been saying, and so much better than that. Like, it is fantastic. I loved it so much. So this was a 5-star film. I was correct in putting it on my 5-star prediction list because it is, oh my God, so much fun. So Keanu Reeves plays John Wick, and this is a story of revenge. So the movie opens with John Wick's wife passing away, and clearly she had some type of disease of some sort because she ended up preparing this gift for him after she passed away. So like the night after her funeral, a dog is delivered to his door, and it's from her. And so because it's from his wife, who he loved so very much, he loves this dog, and it becomes, you know, very, very quickly a huge part of him. Well, he is a man who lives an incredibly lavish life somehow. He has a very nice car, an incredibly nice house, and one day while he's out driving, I think he's getting gas, this group of 3 guys come up to him and ask to buy his car. He blows them off, tells them no, it's not for sale. They don't like that, and they find him, and bad things happen. And then John Wick is out for revenge. And I'm going to leave it there, because that's all I knew about this film coming into it. And just as the onion layers peeled back, I was just more and more enthralled by this film. It is fascinating. I had no idea, the backstory of John Wick at all. And so I don't want you to either. If you don't know, watch this movie with just knowing what I've told you so far. And that's that, because I think as you learn these things as the film goes on, it just makes it that much more fun. So this was directed by Chad Stahelski. Chad Stahelski, if you look at his IMDb, he is very much a stuntman first and foremost. He does have some like second unit director or assistant director credits on there as well, but this was his first feature as a director, which just blows my mind because the use of color, they have this a scene at the end with the rain coming down. Oh, I mean, is it a typical stupid action thing? Yes, but it is done so well. I loved it so much. John Wick isn't a deep movie by any stretch of the imagination, but there are some layers to this that I thought were so much fun. The action sequences, the fight sequences are phenomenal. I cannot stress enough how much I love this film. 5 out of 5 stars. The most entertaining piece of media I have seen in 2020. If you've not seen it, check this movie out. 5 stars. All right, so that is going to do it for all 6 films I watched in June. These 4 here and then the 2 digital that I talked about. So it was a very enjoyable movie month, which frankly, if I'd only watched John Wick, I would have said the same thing because that was just so good. So anyway, let me know down in the comments below, which of these movies do you disagree with me on? Which do you agree on? Are you a big Don't Look Now fan? Because I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of comments about Don't Look Now and how it just wasn't for me, but that's okay. Let me know how wrong I am down in the comments below. I welcome it. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to Cinefessions here on YouTube. And if not, thank you anyway for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for tonight. I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.